The internet is in flames over the new episodes of Doctor Who, and rightfully so, but there are two huge things going on underneath the fabric of these shows that no one is talking about, but I will. The ratings thus far have been lower than Jodie Whittaker's.
And that's saying something.
Right, you are, Doge, and realistically, that's kind of expected when you have the star of the show, guest stars, and even the showrunner all telling us not to watch before the show even comes out.
So they knew it was crap beforehand.
Clearly something. But seriously, guys, what happened to the good old days when actors would just say things like, you know, it's such an honor to be chosen to portray such an iconic character. We'll do our best to make a great show and we hope everyone enjoys it. Instead, Ncuti slams his predecessors with a slur of white mediocrity. I mean, just watch the news and be self-aware, people. Rachel Zegler showed you the way.
This carpet is a person with feelings.
Be grateful for your opportunities. If you come off as arrogant and entitled, no one is going to like you. They don't care if you're gay or not. They want you to do a good job and respect the character. The most interesting quote that I think really sums up the whole thing was Russell T Davies saying he didn't receive this kind of backlash when he was writing Queer as Folk. Duh. That's because your experience as a gay man was relevant to that audience and that story. Just because you have a specific lived experience doesn't mean it translates into everything you write. I have 20 years of radio and television experience. Does that mean if I'm hired to write the next Bond film, I should have 007 sitting in a music meeting deciding what singles to add to the playlist that week? Of course not. The sickening thing that really gets me is he knows better, because he did it right the first time. In his first run with Doctor Who, those overtones were there. Those storylines were there in Captain Jack.
Captain Jack Harkness, by the way.
I'm Davidge Pavel.
Nice to meet you, Davidge Pavel.
There's a time and a place.
Were people offended by that? No, he's one of the most popular characters of the entire series. Met him, nice guy.
Did you smash?
Hey there.
Hello.
Captain Jack Harkness.
Linda Moss.
Nice to meet you, Linda Moss.
You mind flirting outside?
I was just saying hello.
For you, that's flirting.
I'm not complaining.
Back in the 90s, coming out was a big deal, but since it's everywhere now, there's this apparent need to scream louder about it. But here's the reality. There's a reason I didn't start this video by saying, hi, my name is Rusty, and here's where I like to put my junk.
Because no one cares where anyone puts their junk.
That wasn't sexy at all.
No.
But there's a faction in entertainment today that desperately thinks that somehow this is incredibly relevant. Hi, I'm so-and-so, and this is where I put my junk. If you want to effect positive change around these kind of subjects, the proper template was established back in 1966. The bridge crew of the Enterprise was completely diverse by design. They even added a Russian in the second season because of the Cold War. But the show itself never drew attention to it because this was a version of the future where everyone just accepted everyone else and worked together in harmony. There was no screaming for attention or playing the victim or thinking that one person was more special than another because of a physical trait. It was a vision of mankind that had grown beyond that. In a truly equal world, this is what it should look like. Even in the episode that they had that dealt specifically with racism, they were confused on two levels. One being that the concept of racism was as alien to them as the aliens, and secondly, that the reasons for this particular brand of racism was so spectacularly ludicrous that the episode stands the test of time nearly 60 years later for how stupid it is and how it looks in the real world.
Are you blind, Commander Spock? Oh, look at me. Look at me.
You're black on one side and white on the other.
I am black on the right side.
Which brings me to my first of 2 points about the problem with these new episodes of Doctor Who. If you take out all the key jangling and screaming about the message and look at those first 2 episodes strictly by story structure, there is none. Things happen almost randomly. There's very little in the way of actual cause and effect. It doesn't make sense. Consequently, it's not even satisfying to watch as a story, even if you try to ignore being beaten over the head while you watch it. Now, to be clear, despite the fact that The Devil's Cord is one of the worst hours of television I have ever seen in my entire life,
And that's saying a lot.
the actual idea has merit. A godlike creature that can take away music, an actual story about music and how important it is to our souls and who we are as humans. That would have been awesome. I would love to see that someday, because this was not it. Even the musical number at the end could have been the cathartic moment I think they wanted it to be, but they didn't even try to make it make sense. The show Lucifer, you know, a show about the devil and God and demons, dark stuff, had an entire musical episode, and they still managed to have it make sense within the confines of the show's rules, and had great music.
Given the story, they should have used Please Please Me.
Considering it was the Beatles' first single, yeah, sure, they could have. They could have used any song, really. They weren't exactly striving for accuracy, considering they show up at Abbey Road and the vehicles on the street match the ones from the album cover, a picture that wouldn't be taken until almost a decade later.
At least they didn't race swap any of them like Sir Isaac Newton.
But that brings me to the second and most important thing that I see happening. See, I wanted to wait until the third episode, written by Stephen Moffat, who was the showrunner during the Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi era, to see if my suspicions were confirmed. Given the absolute garbage of the first two episodes, I was relatively confident that we'd at least have a coherent story, but I was extremely aware that it would be a story filtered through Davy's lens, so I was skeptical but still hopeful. Boom was god-tiered compared to the first two episodes, but it still contained that critical problem that I noticed in the other two episodes. The Doctor is not the hero of these stories. In fact, in some moments, he's the exact opposite. Think about it. We have a being that's over 2,000 years old who's faced down evil of all kinds. Daleks, exterminate! Weeping angels, the Silence, even Satan himself.
I've seen fake gods and bad gods and demigods and would-be gods, not all that.
But he runs away and hides from a drag queen climbing out of a piano?
This one runs away a lot.
But when I talk about him being the hero, I mean something more specific than that on a story level. He is not the one solving the situation. The smartest being in the universe is almost helpless. While I thought Ncuti did a great job in this episode, the Doctor failed. He had the idea to send that soldier's AI up as a virus, but the virus was overcome. The countdown hit 0, and he had nothing. They got out of it with Writer Ex Machina.
Besides, Tom Baker already did the stepping on a mine routine.
Follow me and tread in my footsteps.
Cooking Wenceslas.
What is it? Harry, I'm standing on a landmark.
Tom's the goat. Everything he did was better. In The Devil's Cord, Ncuti's Doctor gets locked in a drum and was ultimately saved by Lennon and McCartney. He had nothing. Again.
Now that you've pointed this out, this is kind of disturbing.
In Space Babies, Queen Charlotte is the one who takes control. She just ends up going a little too far, and the Doctor has to step in to help rein her back in.
Why were the children suddenly cheering for a monster that terrorized them for years?
Oh, don't get me started. At the very least, they gave us a good drinking game. You want a good drinking game, just put on Space Babies and drink every time somebody says Space Babies. As I said in my last video about this, the show is over one way or the other, regardless of how well this does. And this is giving me the vibe that Davies knows this too, and he just thought he'd use the opportunity to abuse the legend of the Doctor by using it as a megaphone for all of his personal beliefs, including all the emotional spite, hate, rage, resentment, all this stuff he may have been building up over his life. It'll be interesting to see how this season plays out. Let's watch these episodes and keep an eye out for that little phenomenon of the Doctor not actually solving the problem. Let me know about it in the comments and stay fresh, cheese bags.